Welcome back to My Dad Watches The Bachelor. I'm Meredith, and I'm here with my co-host, my dad.
Hello, Meredith. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good and excited to talk about another entertaining episode of The Bachelorette.
Yeah, it was definitely entertaining. I'm I was sweating my boy Chasen for a little bit, wondering if I was gonna officially have no picks left, but he managed to stay alive through the rose ceremony this week.
Which seemed to be a little bit of a surprise that both Chasen and Ed both survived, and it seemed like one or both of them was going to get their walking papers, but they lived to fight another day.
They do. So should we get into it? I'm sure we're gonna discuss this in more detail as we go through our
Let's,
highs and lows and whatnot.
well, let me give you my first high that I wrote down. I got to meet Ashley and Jared, who
Yes.
who I was pleasantly surprised to find they've been married for a year after meeting on Chlamydia Island. The dads have not yet workshopped a better name for it yet. We'll continue working on that. But I was impressed that someone met on that show and they're still married.
Yes, they have quite the love story if you really care about it and want to look up the background. But they were really good friends for a long time, and Ashley knew it was love at first sight, and Jared did not know that. So there was a lot of back and forth with their relationship before they got together. But they're a cute couple. I enjoy them.
Well, I was just very happily surprised to see that someone from that show is still together. So cheers to them.
There's multiple people from that show still together. Jared or Jade and Tanner, they are from Chlamydia Island as well, which I still don't like that name. They just had their third child together last week. Lots of marriages and babies coming off the island.
Not to mention sexually transmitted infections. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, my high, I quite enjoyed the grown ass man challenge that Jared and Ashley did. I thought it was quite fun to see Bennett, Mr. Harvard, getting most of the easy math and spelling questions wrong. I did the math ones in my head as they were going. I would have got those right, and then they said limousine spelling, and I'm not as confident I would have spelled limousine correctly.
Well, yeah, you don't have a Harvard education, but I do think that Bennett sort of pushed Ivy League educations back a bit there with his performance in that one. So I enjoyed that. That was okay. They, for the most part, they kept their clothes on, but at the end, I guess Chasen and Bennett were showing their stuff, which I sort of assumed you liked.
Well, I find Chasen quite attractive, so I don't mind when he takes his shirt off. But Bennett really doesn't do it for me. He just not really my type. He's a bit too like I can't tell if he's trying to be arrogant or funny, and it just doesn't mesh well with me. I prefer the less intelligent boys that don't know a difference between an adjective and a noun.
I'm sure your previous boyfriends that are listening will appreciate that.
Well,
uh,
I'm not done though. I still want to talk about the grown ass man challenge because I think
Go
that
ahead.
what who would you have awarded the grown ass man award to? Because I would not have given it to Bennett since he didn't participate in the strength challenge because of quote a previous football injury, and he got a lot of the intelligence questions wrong. I don't understand why he was our winner.
Well, I agree with you 100% on that, and uh, I sort of put as a low light the way that they gave Bennett the win there. So I don't know who should have won, but I think it certainly should not have been Bennett.
I put that as a low as well. I don't think it should have been Bennett. I don't think his beignets from Chateau Benet was enough to really pull out the win there. I wouldn't have given it to Chasen, even though I do enjoy him. I think that Ivan or Ben should have won the grown ass man challenge.
I thought Ivan had a good night. Ben was having a good night, but yeah, he sort of didn't he didn't finish strong. But I would have gone with either of them. And And I'm not totally sure why Ed got the whatever the
Man-child of the night.
yeah I felt a little bad for Ed. I'm not sure why he got that award, but he seemed to do the best with it as he could.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he got it either, but as the night progressed and the episode progressed, I agreed with it. He he's kind of a baby, and he likes to push buttons and stir the pot. I think he knows that he doesn't really have a connection with Tasha, so he wants to make a grand exit.
I don't think he wants to make a grand exit. I think he will make a grand exit. Um, Another one of my highlights was just the unintentional comedy of Chasen. Yeah, he was. I got a good laugh when he was telling Bennett that you don't wear a robe to a cocktail party, while he's wearing this beige T-shirt that really didn't look particularly appropriate for a cocktail party either. And I kept enjoying him talking about breaking out his inner Wolverine, and waiting for that to happen. I don't know if that sounds impressive to eligible bachelorettes like yourself or people of a certain age. To me, it just sort of sounds funny, but he kept comparing himself to the Wolverine, and as things were ratcheting up with Ed, seemed ready to go off on him in his Wolverine mode. So I was enjoying the unintentional comedy of Chase.
I also enjoyed that. That was a high for me. Personally, I'm not familiar with the Wolverine. I'm assuming it's like a superhero movie or something. I don't really know, but the other Chasen, he's just cracking me up. Like Ed say, take your medium shirt and go sit down, and Chasen looks. He's like, medium. Actually, it's a large shirt. Like Chasen is just. He's just given me so much, and he hasn't really given us much in previous episodes. But like he he and Ed are getting. I didn't understand why Ed had an issue with Chasen to even begin, but as we progress through the episode, we find out that Ed doesn't like Chasen because Chasen's using the same adjectives to describe Claire and Tasha. And, you know, I don't think that's a good reason to dislike someone. Maybe he's just not that smart and doesn't know that many words. Or like when you're first dating someone, you're like, yeah, they're sweet and nice and funny. You use those same words, but I just don't think that Chasen knows that many words. They're not allowed to bring books on the show. He couldn't bring his thesaurus with him. And he tried really hard to come up with some new words. His new word is now smoke show. This is a smoke show. And he even started speaking Spanish towards the end. He switched to a whole new language to get Ed off his back. He's saying that Tasha's muy caliente. Jason, he's a great guy. He seems like he's gotten hit in the head a few too many times. And personally, that's my type. I liked it.
Well, I agreed with you up until that last sentence, but yeah, he. I sort of wrote down as well that I'm just not sure he has a big vocabulary. So I'm not sure that we should be holding that against him in the way he is describing Claire and Tasha. So yeah, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure he's any more guilty of it than other guys on that show that probably said the same thing. So I agree with you on that. And I put Smoke Show, and the number of times he said Smoke Show is sort of a low light. To me, that might be something that you say to your buddies at some point in time, but I don't think that's what you go around saying on a TV show, in front of a bunch of competitors. Tasha's obviously very attractive, but I don't think you have to continually describe her as the Smoke Show.
I just loved how proud he was of it. He's like, "Look, I have a new word now. It's smoke show," and he was just really sticking with it. He was committed to the smoke show.
Maybe you should change. Since we don't have Claire there to cry and count the number of times she's crying, perhaps we should count the number of smoke show references from Tation as we go forward. Chasen as we go forward.
I think we had at least 3 this episode.
I think at least 3.
Personally, I wouldn't hate if Chasen called me a smoke show, but maybe that's just me.
As a dad, that's probably not the term I would prefer him to be using, and particularly with my daughter. But anyway, a couple of other highlights I had. Again, I just found it very funny that Ed was carrying around this baby and having these conversations with Chasen and people about right reasons, wrong reasons, and the temperatures are going up, and it looks like there's going to be a confrontation. And he's carrying around this little baby that on occasion makes crying noises. So that was pretty funny to me.
Yeah, I enjoyed Baby Carlos.
Baby Carlos. And then, other highlight I had was just the whole Noah mustache thing, or the whole Noah thing, and the mustache, as your Uncle John would call it, a porn stash. When he's jumping the fence and willing to fight for Tasha's heart, and I found that to be a highlight. And I'm still looking at him, trying to figure out who he looks like, and I've sort of decided it's a combination of the golfer Ricky Fowler and the football player Gardner Minshew. What do you think?
Well, it's kind of hard for me to conjure those images in my head. Gardner Minshew, don't see it. Ricky Fowler, don't know him.
Okay, well, you should. He's a good golfer, So I'm
more of a Rory McIlroy kind of girl.
Okay, well, anyway, I enjoy it. I know Noah is not making friends with the guys, but I kind of enjoyed Noah.
I enjoyed him too, and I liked that he seemed very committed to his mustache, but was willing to shave it, and he actually looked really good. And I also enjoyed watching Tasha try to gently tell him to get rid of it, because I feel like most girls have been in those positions before where they're like, yeah, it looks so good, but you know what would look better? If you didn't have it.
Well, from experience, I can say that it will grow back if he wants to. If he gets his walking papers and wants to resume the mustache look, which I think he called his secret power at some point when he was walking back to the date after getting his shaving equipment, but it'll grow back.
Yeah, he'll be fine. It's interesting to look at their ages now as we get to know them better, because Noah's only 25 and I'll be 25 in less than a month now. So it's weird that he's my age, and then some guys out here, and Noah seems more mature than some of the guys that we saw this week, like Chasen and Ed is 36 years old. Like he's over a decade older than Noah, and he's over here holding a fake baby and talking about Chasen's t-shirt size.
Well, I'm not a big Ed fan, so yeah, and I don't know where Noah falls on the maturity scale, but I admired his boldness and willing to get involved in after Ed totally wimped out.
Well, yeah, that takes me into my low, the suspenseful build-up to the fight against Ed and Chasen to have him wimp out. Those were my words. We both said wimp out, by the way. But I was so excited to see Chasen whoop some ass.
Well, it looked to me like it was getting a little out of hand there, and so I didn't really admire the way Ed weaseled out of it. In that it seems like this whole thing's going on, and then right before it's time for him to actually have to wrestle, he remembers that he's got a shoulder problem. After we saw him lifting weights and doing stuff, or I guess it was before he was.
Yes,
lifting weights. I don't know.
Exactly. We see Chasen working out in the morning, and then it shows us Ed doing these weird little shoulder lifts with weights. I don't really use weights in workouts, but his exercise that he was doing was definitely focused on the shoulders. And then, telling Chris Harrison, oh, like my shoulders, they just have some issues, dislocate, pop out of place. I really can't do this. And like after he's been wrestling all morning, practicing during the group date, like gets oiled up, he's a wimp. He copped out. He knew that he was about to get demolished.
Yeah, and it was probably for the best in that I think Chase would have done serious damage to him, and their insurance rates would have gone through the roof. But and the way he weaseled out of it was just not a good look. And
When
I was pretty surprised he didn't get more crap from everyone. Tasha, the other guys, and maybe he is, and they're not showing it. But just the way he weaseled out, I expected he would have been hearing it from people.
the way he weaseled out, one might say, was very man-child of him.
I guess you could say that.
So, quick question for maybe some of our listeners that are more along the Meredith age and interest. How does one win a wrestling match?
Well, I mean, I think isn't it usually you get pinned, but it looked like their special referee people were sort of making a judgment on who is the better wrestler. So, and I know at least in one, I guess Ben and somebody
Spencer.
Spencer tied, and and there were a couple wrestlers that were sort of like me saying, I know I'm going to get my ass kicked. I just hope my face isn't smashed in here and I survived this. But at least they went through with it. Of course, I don't think Chasen was in the mood to show any mercy on Ed, so I think that one would have been much uglier.
Yeah. I enjoyed the characters of similar, the Joes of the episode where he's saying, I'm a lover, not a fighter. I wasn't expecting to go very far here. That's what I would be like if I was forced to do a wrestling date.
Me too. And so here's a question for you as the expert in all things Bachelor, and maybe I'm a Neanderthal and just didn't really notice it during the Bachelor season, and maybe the girls on the Bachelor seasons are running around in their underwear the whole time. But it just seems like on this season, between the Speedo pool basketball and strip dodgeball, and now we're oiling up for wrestling, that there just seems to be an awful lot of man flesh going on out there. Is this my imagination, or is this just par for the course?
Well, maybe a little bit of both. I mean, I feel like last season with Peter, there was some type of lingerie pillow fight wrestling match that happened, and there's usually something like that. But at the same time, I feel like dates are a bit more limited now that they have to stay at the La Quinta to do them. So there's only so many ideas that you can come up with that don't include shirtless men.
Well, it seems like they're erring on the side of more shirtless men, which I don't know how that relates to the Bachelor season with the ladies, and as you said, yes, I guess there was some wrestling with the ladies, but it just seems like we're really pushing in that direction at this point in time. Which for perhaps for the majority of the audience, that's a winner. For the dads, not so much. I guess I should check with the mom on that one.
Okay. Do you have any other lows that you would like to discuss?
I think we touched on most of them.
Okay, well, I want to get into the right reason. I am giving Ben my right reason of the episode. I think that he was really opening up to Tasha. They're really cute together. I like watching them interact. And he had this, really nice plan where he was going to be the last person to talk to Tasha at the cocktail party. So he was going to, help her relax, and he would be the last thing on her mind going into the group, like giving out the group date rose. And you could just tell as the night progressed and how many times they kept cutting to Ben being like, oh, I have this great plan. It's going to be so great. I just knew it was not going to work out well for him. And I think that he really is there for the right reason. And I just felt so bad when he didn't get his opportunity to talk to Tasha. He had that nice plan, and Tasha even said in front of the whole group, like, I was disappointed in you for not coming to talk to me. Like that hurt my heart a little bit.
Yeah. I think that he had a good night up until that point, and then that was sort of a downer, and I'm sure he's going to blame that on Noah, as all the guys are going to blame it on Noah, and obviously Noah got that group date rose, so they're all upset about that. The one that I put down for right reason this week was Ivan. I thought Ivan was very, very smooth. I thought that was a pretty good romantic move with the blindfold and the strawberries and the kiss. I I like Ivan. He seems, sort of. I guess it was like, was it Brennan last week or Brendan? I can't keep them. I don't think he's the most handsome guy, but I think he might be one of the more marriable guys on the show, and he seems to be pretty sincere. So I liked Ivan.
I agree. Ben and Ivan are my two favorites right now. Well, obviously besides Chasen, but I don't see Chasen having a real future with Tasha at this point. Ben and Ivan, I think, definitely are top four material.
And just I'll throw out there also, I like the fact that Tasha, when she was dealing with the whole Ed and Chasen thing, she's on camera saying, I make up my own mind. I'm going to go by my gut. I'm going to go by my intuition, and and I don't think she probably made the right decision keeping them both around, but I really would hate for her to throw somebody off just because another guy came on as the tattletale saying, "Oh, Chasen's doing this, wah wah wah." Make up your own mind, and I sort of admired her approach on that.
Yeah, I think after having dealt with Claire for a majority of the season, we just are really fortunate to have a lead that knows what she wants and like trusts her gut, and we also feel comfortable trusting our lead's gut.
Well, I'm with you on that, and as I said, I think she seems to be a much more appropriate hostess for the show, and she doesn't seem interested in embarrassing anybody, and she seems willing and interested in trying to meet these people and understand them a little bit, and that to me, that it looks like work, but I think she's doing a good job.
I agree. So who's your wrong reason?
As far as wrong reason, I put Ed. I just when somebody starts coming out with he's not here for the right reason, blah 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 blah, I sort of think, well, look, buddy, I don't like the tattletale sort of thing. I'm not sure you're here for the right reason. I don't know about Chasen. As I found him to be sort of amusing this one. I don't think he's probably there for the right reason either. But I would put Ed at the top of the list.
I also think it is Ed. I do not enjoy when Ed sits down with Tasha. He does like what you said. I don't think some people are here for the right reason, and then he immediately says, "I don't want to name drop, but it's Chasen."
Yeah,
What? Like it never works out well for someone that wants to go tattletale on another person, and I don't understand. Like I think Ed knows that he doesn't have a good connection with Tasha. Otherwise, he'd be using his time with her to talk about them rather than to talk about Chasen.
agree 100%.
So I'm not into Ed. I don't think he's attractive. I don't like his personality. I do like his baby, but I'm ready for him to go.
Yeah, and I guess he'll have to take the baby with him.
Yeah. So that takes me into my MVP, which I'm giving it to Carlos the baby.
Carlos the baby.
Yeah, he isn't stirring up any drama. He's staying in his lane. He's just there hanging out. And I think that Carlos the baby is the only reason why, if I were on the group date with Ed, I wouldn't be smacking him upside the head because he's holding a nice little baby. And you can't do that to a dad with a little baby. But if he had no Carlos, I think that boy would have gotten pummeled.
So Carlos the baby is the protector of Ed.
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, I generally have a hard time coming up with any MVPs in these things. So I think Carlos is as good as any. Good for you.
Thanks. I'd also give it to Chasen because he made me laugh a lot, but we talked enough about him. So Carlos the baby it is.
Okay.
So do you have
Well,
any fatherly advice?
well, I always try to pick up a few things, from our friend Bennett. I wrote down you have to avoid the cocky, arrogant Ivy League stuff. Really, the education there is not worth the dollars. There's some great state universities out there that you and I both attended, and look at us. We're doing a podcast about the Bachelorette, so you can still be successful. Eat at Harvard. Um, I like Ben's explanation of a grown ass man. I think he talked about being kind, being humble, and being honest. And I think those are the attributes that these guys should be aspiring to. I wrote down: be careful about the tattletaling. Unless someone is really at risk. Shut your pie hole, Ed. Come on. No one really likes the tattletale. Him going and telling Tasha that Chasen screamed at me and postured up. Oh, come on, Ed, be a grown up here. Come on. And sometimes you have to be bold, like Noah was. And sometimes if you hesitate, that's a bad thing, like Ben, who missed out by not getting his time with Tasha at the group date. So if there's something that you want, you got to go for it. So that would be my fatherly advice.
I think that was pretty good. I like the eat at Harvard part.
Okay. Well, we'll wear our college sweatshirts and hats proudly, won't we?
Yeah, and they're a lot cheaper.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's all we have for this week. Join us next week to hear more about Tasha's season from the right perspective and my dad's.